Hello and welcome to Newsblitz. I am Atinuke Nuki. Before we continue, remember the coronavirus is a deadly disease. Wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds and use a hand sanitizer. Also wear a face mask and practice physical distancing when outside. And now to the rest of the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has called on countries, businesses and individuals to work together to overcome challenges and make the world a better place. The president made the call on Friday during Nigeria's National Day ceremony at the Expo 2020 Dubai. It described the theme of the event as apt, saying it has put forward the challenges of demanding the desired future. President Buhari also called on business leaders to partner with Nigeria and explore the business opportunities on offer in the country. Meanwhile, a large number of civil servants continue to throng the Eagle Square to receive their COVID-19 shots in an ironic twist. Officials of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency are not equipped with the hand gloves for the task at hand. Officials who are supposed to be the first line of defense are also administering vaccines to workers without wearing a face mask. Correspondent Aishat Olaoye has more.
A huge crowd besieged the only vaccination point available at Federal Secretariat. This large number of people, including the NPHCDA staff administering COVID-19 vaccines, are guilty of the same thing. Everyone is clustered around this point without any regard for physical distancing. And to make matters worse, no one is wearing a face mask, neither is there a sign of hand sanitizers. It is obvious that the crowd here cannot be controlled by officials of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency.
We're having issues because of this deadline. It's overwhelming. It is really difficult to deal with the crowd and with the mind state of Nigerians as are right now. Everybody is on their toes. Everybody is trying to see how they can get vaccinated so that they can get back to the office. The crowd is close to uncontrollable.
There is these curious explanations for why hand gloves are not being used during vaccination.
Their gloves can get contaminated due to the crowd and the area of what we are dealing with. So they use hand sanitizers to wipe their hands, but the gloves attract more germs and it stays more on the gloves. We've tried to see how that can work, but it's not.
The NPHCDA sees nothing wrong in citizens being mandated to receive vaccination by federal government. Nevertheless, citizens have two options regarding the vaccination.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, we did not make it mandatory. We did not say it is by force you must have the vaccination. We gave two options. We said either you get vaccinated and have your card, or you submit a negative report showing that you are free from COVID every 72 hours.
As much as it is important to vaccinate Nigerians to kick out COVID-19, the Federal Ministry of Health should ensure officials responsible for vaccination are rightly informed and properly sensitized. From the nation's capital, Aishat Olaoye, Silverbird 24.
And still on health, the federal government is being urged to reactivate all primary health care centers across the country towards achieving universal health coverage. But beyond this, stakeholders are asking for improved funding for management of HIV and AIDS while working towards the eradication of the disease. Correspondent Aishat Olaye completes the story.
Statistics by WHO have revealed that about 1.9 million of Nigerians are living with the virus. UNAIDS goes further to project that two-thirds of the new HIV infections in West and Central Africa in recent times occur in Nigeria. Unfortunately, the outbreak of COVID-19 in 2020 brought about a decline in funding of HIV healthcare as all attentions was shifted to coronavirus. This expert is reminding governments that HIV is still spreading as a silent killer.
For the past 1.5 years, we've been dealing with COVID-19, and it has taken attention away from HIV/AIDS. Whereas HIV/AIDS is still here, killing people. A lot of people are, getting positive, and there are so many challenges now with HIV/AIDS that we must never take attention away from it.
Nigerians are again being advised to regularly get tested to know their status and take wise decisions.
Come forward for testing. Make sure that there is testing. We want to end HIV pandemic. We want to end inequalities. And want to make sure that there is sustainable finance for HIV/AIDS.
The message to younger people has not changed. Avoid risky behaviors and abstinence remains the best option.
My advice is take the test so you'll be able to know your status, then you know which side you are. If you are HIV positive, you stay on drugs. Then if you are negative, then you protect yourself by using condoms or abstinence.
As federal government and stakeholders in the health sector join hands to fight COVID-19, other viral diseases like HIV and Lassa fever still exist and must also be accorded same attention. From the nation's capital, Aishat Olaoye, Silverbird News 24.
In the meantime, Speaker of the House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila has said that the advancement in information technology and the evolution of new media and the spread of misinformation on the threat to democracy. The Speaker made this known on Thursday at a two-day conference on information management in Abuja. He said deliberate measures under the law needed to be taken to mitigate the effects of such development on the journey to achieving a perfect union of the diverse cultures and religions in Nigeria. Other stakeholders contributed their quota on the need for media information management.
In Nigeria, with our diverse cultures and religions still working towards achieving a more perfect union, hate speech and other forms of misinformation and disinformation can quickly have a devastating real-world effect. Therefore, countering misinformation by whatever proper and legal means are available to us is not a theoretical question, but a responsibility that goes to the heart of our ability to continue to exist as one nation in peace, unity, and prosperity. Let us be aware that in trying to prevent the worst consequences of misinformation and hate speech, there is a danger of going too far in ways that smother the marketplace of ideas and deprive citizens of their free speech rights. That would be most unfortunate. And as leaders and government policymakers, we must avoid that outcome by all means.
We as a people, community, and government must ask ourselves, for what purpose, to what end, and in which manner do we move from present phase of development of our nation to the next? One such vision is identified. The major tool for making that vision a natural on our way of life is through proper information generation, management, and dissemination of information. Unfortunately, we as Nigerians have engaged ourselves mainly in social media adventurism and economic gain until recently the strength when the certain developments at one point or the other show us the strength in our unity and the need to see Nigeria as a project that requires the collective effort for prosperity
in order that we can have a proper estimation of the challenge at hand. Peace, social harmony, and inter-ethnic rapprochement are the prerequisites for genuine national development. We do not have these preconditions at the moment in our country, which accounts for the current stagnant in the national development and declining foreign investment inflow.
The Senate Committee on Army faced division over alleged lopsided recruitment in the Nigerian Army as two members of the panel walked out of the meeting. The Senate panel meeting had been scheduled to interact with the commandant of the Nigerian Army on training and doctrine. But at the midst of the meeting, Deputy Senate Minority Whip, Senator Ibrahim Dambaba, and the lawmaker representing Rivers South East, Senator Barry Mbi, walked out of the meeting over what was lent as overbearing of the vice chairman of the committee.
So I raised an issue. I said, the senator who spoke on the lopsidedness of this recruitment process is right. And therefore, since we have been asking, let us once more ask for these statistics so that we will be able to know whether what the general was saying that there has never been any lopsidedness in their recruitment, whether it is a matter of fact or just a matter of, not speculation, whether it is just a matter of, voicing out his opinion.
But the point I made there is very clear. I was chairman of that committee at that time. And the question that was not relevant to the content of the meeting, we have the agenda of the meeting. So I can't rule you out of order. And I ruled him out of order because he was asking the commander training and doctrine a question on recruitment. And the man is only giving people to train. He doesn't recruit. And I'm on good record that the committee had previously talked to the Chief of Army Staff on the recruitment policy of the Army and the fact that members of the Senate Committee have not been carried along because their candidates have not been taken. And the man explained, said, one, there are processes. There are processes, starting from physical to medical to whatever. And that if we gave them candidates that didn't meet those requirements, they will have no choice but not to pick other people that are better qualified.
The upper chamber is collating reports from its subcommittees from various defenses of their budget proposals by ministries, departments, and agencies. The defense reports were referred by the subcommittees to the Senate Committee on Appropriation for Harmonization. Senate correspondent gives an overview of the harmonized reports, submissions, and matters arising from most of the ministries, departments, and agencies. The Senate had on the 14th of October adjourned plenary till November 9th to enable its various committees to interface with ministries and agencies of the federal government for the processes of their budget defense. For 4 weeks now, MDAs have been scrutinized for either their inability to be able to generate enough revenue for their excesses on personnel costs. It has become a chorus that occurs annually for the agencies of government to complain about paucity of funds, even though the country keeps borrowing yearly to fund the budget.
The Nigerian army is at war, and all they need is what it takes to win the war. And what it takes to win the war is to provide them all the necessary platforms that they need, arms, ammunition, and pay their regular allowances or their allowance. It's not cheap.
The allocation to power is rather very, very inadequate. The budget of the judiciary should be at least 1% of the budget of this country.
Some level of budgetary or financial autonomy will help both the Ministry of Works and FEMA itself in fulfilling its constitutional mandate. So
today we have a large number of unemployed people, and we are bringing a budget system that is so unknown, so questionable, so dubious.
With a budget deficit of 6.26 trillion naira, most agencies are expected to develop strategies to generate revenue for the federal government. But most MDAs are falling short of expectations and shows complaints over either paucity of funds or envelope budget. The Chairman Senate Committee on Appropriation and his counterpart on the Senate Committee on Finance both shed light on the National Assembly's intentions after the harmonization and submission of reports.
We are aware of the fact that there are several complaints in respect to inadequate funds to execute projects in various MDAs. But you know all over, the resources are very, very scarce. What is needed in all times is to apply these funds based on priority. So, and this is exactly what the executive has done by bringing a bill containing provisions in respect of spendings that are needed in various MDAs.
Out of all the MDAs, only a few could boast of generating revenue for the federal government. These will definitely have implications.
The real challenge we have is revenue. So if we get to the point, especially our budget, and we are also not facing these revenue challenges sincerely, we will go back and borrow 6 trillion. If it's not enough, we borrow additional 2 trillion. That's half of our budget. And as time goes on, we even be borrowing to pay salary, if we are not doing that already. We are borrowing to construct road in the name of bonds and so on and so forth. So we may have to get to a point where we are borrowing for our recurrent expenditure. And Who knows? Maybe someday politicians may also borrow to contest election.
Recall that the President of the Senate had complained about the huge budget deficit for 2022 when the budget estimates were presented by President Muhammadu Buhari to the joint session of the National Assembly.
Persons with disabilities in Nigeria are being urged to participate in political processes in order to ensure that their rights are protected. Stakeholders believe the more persons with disabilities participate in politics, the more the influence they will acquire to address issues that concerns them. Correspondent Margaret Ogbo has details.
The World Health Organization estimates 15% of the world population as having a disability. The global disability community has been largely excluded from public life, especially when it has to do with decision making. This is why it is imperative for them to engage in political processes.
It is important that we're in the political space because that way our voices will be heard and our numbers do count, and with those numbers we can change a lot of things. Nigeria is a signatory to all the protocols on disabilities. It is an aberration that at this point in time we're still struggling to put our names out there.
If more persons with disabilities are involved in politics, laws will be passed in their favor.
The community of persons with disabilities are so powerful that if on their own they mobilize votes, I for one, for example, can mobilize 5 or 6 votes or more. So the more we get into the political space, the better for us, because that way we don't come beggarly anymore. We're not treated as things of sympathy.
While calling for political inclusion, the government has been urged to provide structures to aid their inclusion.
The nation, the organization, everyone need to start thinking, if we're going to include these people, do we also have the structures and the system to include them? Do we have ramps in the offices? Do we have anything that would help them to collect their PVC and be a credible voter when it comes to the election?
The federal government has taken several steps to address the needs of persons with disability, but it is essential that their physical abilities are not used to discriminate against them when it comes to political involvement. From the nation's capital, Margaret Ogbo, Silverbird News 24.
You are watching Newsblitz, reaching you live from Abuja. We will be back with more reports after this break. Please stay tuned.
I miss those years when we sit together to eat abacha at the hilltop. I miss those years.
I want them to go back to that old line. More music, less talk.
It's been an exciting journey, and I've always been part of the station.
Reading FM is still going strong, I swear, because this is, sorry to swear, this is a station that has been hit.
Years of giving control.
2 years after the 2019 general elections, the FCT minister has constituted his management team with a charge on the mandates, secretaries and other appointees to hit the ground running at a swearing ceremony. The minister said the cabinet was constituted following the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari, who is also the Governor General of the FCT.
Over the last 6 years, the administration in the FCT, under the able guidance of our leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, have concentrated largely on the completion of ongoing and abandoned projects that we inherited from the previous administration. Through careful application and management of scarce resources, we have largely met our objectives in these regards, and other projects still ongoing have been firmly set on the path of completion, inshallah. On our part, we are determined to increase our internally generated revenue, and as you all know, we are currently in Nigeria second only to Lagos in internal general revolution. We have potential to be number one in Nigeria, and by the grace of God, before the end of this administration, we intend to be the number one subnational in IGR.
As part of activities to commemorate activism against sexual and gender-based violence, the federal government, in partnership with other stakeholders, have launched the Gender-Based Violence National Accountability Framework. The initiative, launched in Abuja, is part of activities aimed at strengthening the ongoing 16 days of activism against the menace of gender-based violence and stimulate effective national response in Nigeria. Correspondent Margaret Ogbo has more.
Gender-based violence is an epidemic. According to the government, 3 in every 10 Nigerian women have experienced physical violence at the age of 15, either through physical, mental, or sexual assault. Over the years, several policies have been established by the government, including the Gender-Based Violence National Accountability Framework to protect citizens.
The unveiling of this important document today will serve as a very strong base in nipping the bud. I want to believe that the lip service we've been paying to gender-based violence will soon be a thing of the past.
For it to be launched during the 16 days of gender-based violence activism is a landmark opportunity to speak against gender-based violence. So my expectation of government is that we'll be able to work together to understand what the issues are on the ground, and that as a major partner of the government of Nigeria in Nigeria, that we are able to work together to address the issues that are identified and to respond to them appropriately.
With these enabling frameworks in place, government and stakeholders must ensure adequate implementation and accountability.
We are starting with reviewing policies that serves the interest of women and girls. Policies that we see that are giving us bottlenecks to implement, even at the grassroots level. We're unbundling it for people to better understand how to, put the policy into action. It's not enough to develop policy, but it's enough for my grandmother in the village to understand what the policy says.
Stakeholders are calling on the government to ensure that GBV policies are implemented.
We're very pleased to see that over the past 2 years, a record number of states have actually domesticated the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. And after that, of course, perpetrators will not stop committing crimes as long as the act is not being implemented. So for all states across the country, we also hope to see that the VAP, apart from domestication, we need to implement the act as well.
It is expected that the new initiative, if adopted and implemented by its stakeholders, will also check duplication of efforts aimed at tackling gender-based violence in the country. From the nation's capital, Margaret Ogbo, Silverbird News 24.
And now we'll move on to the foreign scene, where the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibrel, said microeconomics factors made it impossible for the region to flout the ECOWAS single currency, the ECO, in 2020. According to him, it could have amounted to an act of irresponsibility to contemplate doing so last year. Mr. Brel said this while delivering the State of Community report at the session of the ECOWAS Parliament in Abuja. Nigeria's capital diplomatic affairs correspondent Shegun Ojomo reports.
The year 2020 was meant to be the year West Africa finally came good on having a single currency. But the coronavirus hit the world, and with it, the single currency plan was out of the window, at least for now. The president of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibrel, says the wide gaps in macroeconomic indicators was not favorable for West Africa to float the ECO in 2020.
In Africa, our region is going through recession, but it has survived. It has fared better than a lot of other countries. It's true that there are recessions, but it was limited to 1%, and so this resilience is commendable.
Mr. Bruce's presentation covers a wide range of topics. It touches on security, political development, economic outlook, health, and key programs of the Commission. As soon as he was done, members took turns to make remarks. Their remarks laid bare what was on their minds: security, food security, and political developments in places like Mali and Gambia. The Gambia is preparing for elections.
It's not a good year for agricultural production. I'm worried in terms of how we'll secure our people, how people are going to be secured in terms of the agricultural produce.
Food security should not be mortgaged. It must be at the top of our priority list.
But back to the subject of the single currency. It is now crystal clear that one key sticking point remains the inability of member states to keep domestic inflation at a single digit. This has and will always prove to be a hard nut to crack. Shegujumu, Silverbird News 24.
Thank you.